And we are live here from RichBrau Brewing. Welcome, everybody. So we are Step Brother Sports. Hello to everybody here coming in. Nice little intimate crowd we have going on. Welcome. So, again, good to be back here at RichBrau Brewing, Richmond, here at Buffalo Bills Backers Bar. Also happy to have my co-host here live with me this time, Shawnee B.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good to be here, Chris Maz. Great to be here in person.
No, so no more remote viewing for you this time out of that casino in Syracuse, Turning Stone. But as always, you can listen to us anywhere where you find your podcast and tune in to us live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, all those great engagement functions you can do for the show. Always appreciate it when you can do that. Follow me, Chris Maz, on social media platforms at CFMAZ and Shawnee B at SV the Dom NHL, and on YouTube at Step Brother Sports. Again, unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight. He's got some sick kiddos at home. But a big shout out to Hank Schmidt and the crew here at RichBrau. Cannot be here without you, so thank you guys so much. So give a big shout out to RichBrau here, folks. And so again, big shout out to them. Just help make this connection with the Bills Backers Bar. So get some drinks, get some snacks, do all that good stuff. But also just to kind of go along with our level of commitment here, Shawnee B was at the Sabres season opening game last night. Unfortunately, wolf for the result, to say the least. But at the same time, love the level of commitment here, Sean. So tell us a couple things you saw there real quick.
Yeah. So the Sabres home opening game, season opener. They played tough. It was 1-0 game pretty much throughout, deep into the third. You know, they ended up getting a bunch of goals towards the end. Kind of freaked out. There was an empty netter in play, but nonetheless, me and the boys did a 9-ish hour drive today, and we were here live on site at Richmond. So there is a level of commitment. So, you know, we do that for you guys, the listeners, the followers, the fans.
Yeah, speaking of commitment, we're happy to bring on tonight's guest, of course, too, once more. So glad to have him reunited here with us. He's also a road warrior right now. And also, he and I are going through the thick of it with some new additions to our families, with just two little ones at home. He welcomed his third. I welcome my second kid into the world. Juggling everything else life throws at us in the meantime. Just work at golongtv.com. It's unlike anything else you'll see out there. You owe it to yourself as an NFL fan to be a subscriber. Content you get from players, coaches, executives, and Hall of Famers is unmatched. All in long-form journalism, something that needs to be done way more in this day and age. Become a friend to us in this industry, and also for him and us, please return your shopping carts and don't go down the Cocoa Mountain path for your kids. I know I learned my lesson with that. So, RichBrau and all of our live viewers, please welcome back to the show, Tyler Dunne.
What's up?
So,
Hey,
Ty, how are you?
I appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, I know. So audio format LP, but at the same time, you are a road warrior because you are also doing your level of commitment. Just being on the road, coming back from Detroit after interviewing the Lions, Dan Campbell and all of his kneecap fighting greatness. Their big tilt against the Chiefs on Sunday night. So again, could not be more grateful for your time to giving us tonight, Ty. So how goes it? Things with the family, recent move into the new house. Lots of things happen at your household, man. So hope you had that coffee on this long drive home down I-90. But we're vibing here. We're having some beverages thanks to RichBrau's friends. Tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Hey, I appreciate you for being so unbelievably understanding, Chris. You know, I wish I was there so we could actually drink some beers. That sounds a lot more fun than kind of jamming between a couple of semis here. But I tell my wife, you know, I'm at the discretion of these teams and players when they want to talk, when they want to sit down for stories that I pitch. I kind of just have to go, right? Like, just tell me where to jump and how high. And you were so flexible with this, so I'm glad we could make it happen, man. So thanks so much.
Yeah, we're grateful for you, man, too, especially like just being on the road. Like you said, it's like being a musician looking for a gig. And also in the crowd, we have Mr. Mookie Hawkins. He's giving a cheers out to you right there, so he'll have one for you.
I'd expect nothing less from Mook. Appreciate you, man.
There we go. But yeah, anyway, like I said, road warrior for you, Ty. So like we said, we're glad to have you here. So let's get right to it with meat and potatoes of what we got tonight. So going back, you had your season prediction, your guy Bob McGinn. You came out swinging with a real big shot. You were calling for the A's. You had, again, You're not biased in anything you do. You had the Bills beating the Washington Commanders in Super Bowl 60 this coming February. So you would have the city of Buffalo, all of Western New York, all Bills Mafia far and wide, and literally euphoric pandemonium, even, and then maybe for weeks, for years, hell, you'd even have folks around here happy around these parts because Washington would be back in the Super Bowl as well, and not to mention the fact your MVP pick was Jaden Daniels. So let's revisit some of those predictions that you had. So first off, how do you feel about the Bills after being 5 games into this season, especially after that clunker they laid on Sunday night against New England? And then furthermore, do you think you still see them as Super Bowl worthy? Does the defense have too many warts? Third down, been a bit dicey. Injuries still plaguing them pretty early on. A lot of key players out, like Ed Oliver, Matt Milano now down once more. Maxwell Harrison, first-round draft pick, just being unfortunately sidelined with that knee injury back in preseason. But again, is this offense not flashy or skilled enough, other than Josh Allen being Superman or Jimbo Cookie running all over teams? But just tell us your thoughts, just now that the Bills are a few weeks in.
I think it's kind of going exactly as you'd expect. I didn't really think the defense was going to look good in September. You've got 2 players that are suspended, right? Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi. You expect Joey Bosa to get hurt at some point. That's been an issue for him. And then Maxwell Harrison goes down in training camp. Milano's been hurt. So, I think it's a marathon. If the Bills have learned anything, through their AFC East reign the last half decade, it's, nothing really matters right now. It really doesn't. Like, you're 4-1. Just take your wins and run the other direction. You're going to have a hiccup. They had the hiccup against Houston last year, and I think we were probably having the same conversations around the Bills. It's a long season. I think that defensively, yeah, they have to play better. Clearly, like, they've got to get after the quarterback. Drake May was way too comfortable, and I think maybe the issues, if you're going to nitpick offensively, yeah, they don't really have a clear identity right now. I think it's great to run the ball, and I'm sure we'll talk Jackson Hawes, bringing in that third tight end, bullying defenses, being unpredictable when you're in those jumbo packages. It's a great thing, but you also have the best player in the galaxy, and you don't want him to be a handoff machine, right? Like, you want Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things, and it's kind of like the Bills yo-yo between being this power rushing team, which is great. Like, they do steamroll teams, but the teams they steamroll are usually bad. Like, the Jets are a joke. So I think when you face elite teams, when you face really good teams, ascending teams like New England even, you need Josh Allen to just be unhinged and make the kind of Herculean plays that he's made. So I don't know. I mean, what is that balance? I'm not quite sure, but I think that's going to be an odyssey for Joe Brady and really Sean McDermott, because, Sean McDermott is the one in his ear kind of saying, run here, run there, pass here, pass there, whenever he would like. So I think they're still trying to figure that balance out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously early on in the season, we're only about to hit week 6 coming up this slate of games. I mean, Sean, Mookie, and the gang here, they're going down to Atlanta to do some coverage for the game. They're going to be meeting up with a good friend of the show and of you, Mr. Tim Graham. So making some connections there. But needless to say, like you were saying, early on in the season, they're going to be able to figure some stuff out. I mean, it's hopeful for the team, especially with Hoyt and Ogunjobi coming off suspension after this game against the Falcons, not to mention coming off the bye week as well. So, I mean, you can only hope for just gradual, steady improvement. You even have a little bit more development on full safety and just everything else starting to click. Maybe a little bit more of that Joe Brady, everyone eats mentality just coming out into full fruition. So we'll have to see. But you're talking about your boy Jackson Hawes. I know Sean wanted to talk a little bit about that because he got a kick out of your article about him that came out a couple weeks ago.
Yes, definitely one of your favorite players, drafted by the Bills. It's your aptly described pro magnum player. Obviously, you just mentioned you kind of made it a nice, easy segue for us. So tight end Jackson Hawes, the Chris Smith mentioned, you wrote a great piece on him prior to week 4. So how valuable is he in your eyes, and what the Bills want to do? Talk about bringing the third tight end, the blocking prowess onto the field and running the ball down the defense's throat. He looked like he was sorely missed, and as he was out with an injury this past week against New England. And furthermore, with the contract situation of Dawson Knox and the cap situation being what it is, for my money, and I guess the Bills' money for that matter, I think Dawson might be the most expendable guy moving forward, just based on having both the when we just mentioned Haas and then also Dalton Kincaid. So, I mean, how do you see that playing out? And do you see him as a potential cap casualty?
In terms of Dawson Knox, I wonder. I feel like Dawson Knox is just going to be a Bill for life, and that what would really be his value on the open market for other teams? I suppose it could be higher than whatever the Bills are willing to pay him, but I don't know, man. I turn on my TV. Dawson Knox is like on every other commercial. Like he's in Western, he's in T-Mark, he's on the billboards. I think he really loves living in Western New York, and I know the Bills really love him. Like after the season ended against Kansas City, and everybody is in mourning. Both Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane made a point, in their season wrap-up press conferences to identify Dawson Knox as like somebody behind the scenes who brings so much to this team that nobody really realizes. I got to chat with Dalton Kincaid over the offseason about that 4th and 5, that drop, tough drop, not an easy drop. But we got into all of that and his revenge for this season. And he pointed to Dawson as somebody who really helped him through a dark time. So I think that there's going to be mutual interest there. But, here comes Jackson Haas. Here comes this hell-raising, road-grading. At one point when I was talking to Jackson a couple weeks ago, I was just trying to get to know him off the field. And I was like, what are you doing off the field? Are you jumping off cliffs? And I didn't actually think that he jumped off cliffs. And he looked at me like, how did you know that? Yes, he does jump off cliffs. he does, he does backflips off of cliffs out there in Lake Powell. Gainers, that's the word I'm thinking of. 50 feet high. So yeah, he is a risk taker. He is football personified. And I feel like as the game goes finesse, as the game goes soft, much like society goes soft, the Bills have a counter here. They can drag you into the dark alley and beat the hell out of you when they bring Jackson Haas in the game, because he brings that unpredictability too. Like he's not a prolific receiver, but I think that catch against Baltimore in week 1 put on everybody's radar, hey, you can't just leave this guy wide open down there. You have to account for him as a receiver. So, you bring 3 tight ends in the game and you have some real unpredictability in terms of the Bills may run, the Bills may pass. Last year they'd bring in Alec Anderson as a third lineman and everybody knew they were going to run. So that's really the innovation that can take the Bills offense to a different level. It's not as fun, right? Like we were saying, you still need Josh Allen to kind of go nuts. But I think that this is something a lot of teams don't have the luxury of doing. And who would have thought, right? Like a blocking tight end out of Yale and Georgia Tech, who barely caught any passes in college, is the X factor on offense. When they drafted him, it was kind of a joke, right? They drafted 5 defensive players. Some people are losing their minds. And then when they get around to the offense, they get a guy who likes to block. So I think that he does have a lot of value. And in terms of this season, I think all 3 tight ends have a ton of value. Dalton Kincaid is the number 1 option in the passing game. Dawson Knox is one of the best leaders in the locker room. Jackson Haas is the guy that's going to leave defenders bruised and bloodied and pissed off. They hate, he is such a pest out there. Watch him after plays. He plays through the echo of the whistle.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, just like you said before, a 6th-round draft pick again, being a diamond in the rough. It's that late in the draft. I mean, a lot of questions have come out about Brandon Beane's draft prowess just in the last few years, just because some of the bigger names like your Jair Elams of the world, your Bashams of the world, didn't exactly pan out, of course, just being 1st-round draft picks, 2nd-round draft picks. Obviously, Tremaine Edmonds, now on the Chicago Bears, didn't end up getting that big money payout for him down the road either. But still, so as I have a Bears fan fan in the audience saying sold, so I know a lot of other Mafia may agree with that too. But still, a couple of shout outs over to some of our comments we've had in right now. Our Texas family right now saying go Bill. We appreciate you for tuning in. So Adam Kennedy, my recent Bills convert, we're gonna be having him attend his first Bills game next month. Going to that Kansas City game, so giving him a nice little shout out. Thanks for the love, my friend. Appreciate that. And again, to all of our friends here at RichBrau that came in to come join. So again, I'm so glad you all are here. But, yeah, so thank you guys. But now I'm here a little bit for the Bills right now. So my buddy Brian, the Bears fan I just mentioned to you, he's gonna kind of here because we're going to talk about your big preseason feature on the Chicago Bears, that House of Dysfunction series. So I was reading through that. It was fascinating because Caleb Williams, I mean, a lot has been said about him, not only in that came out, but it's just showing severe lack of leadership skills, just unwillingness to take that next step, just be an accountable player, accountable teammate, and just listen to the feedback of his coaches, ultimately leading into that whole crew getting fired last year in Chicago. I mean, and also, like, shockingly, leading to the discovery of literally an undocumented learning disability. I mean, the man has dyslexia. It's nuts. But at the same, and like, that was not addressed in the pre-draft process. But at the same time, even just throughout the scouting process, Ryan Poles is being extremely inflexible to listen to any quarterback commentary for Drake May, for Jaden Daniels, had them ranked down so far down the totem pole for him, and not to mention just not even just giving them the light of day as far as even a pre-draft visit. But still, talk back on that series that you had, which was truly illuminating just on the state of affairs going on at Hallis Hall again, and what it was like just writing a series like that. It was just so extensive.
Hey, I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for reading, because I know it's a commitment to sit down and read 27,000 words. It really became a book. I started working on it, I think, as early as February and March is when I started chatting with these sources. It was 32 in all, coaches, execs, scouts, GMs around the league, and a lot of people right inside Hallis Hall. And if I'm being completely honest, when I started reporting on this, I really thought it would be a celebration of Caleb Williams and this union with Ben Johnson, which, as I write throughout the series, there is hope for Caleb Williams. I mean, Ben Johnson is that good of a coach, that great of a play caller, and you're seeing spurts of it through 4 games, and this will be a big one Monday night. So he's with the right coach. But that's kind of how I approached it. And then the more I heard from coaches and players, everybody, how last season kind of went down, the more it was like, holy hell, this isn't what we were sold. This isn't the narrative that's kind of been marinating in the public discourse. And it's not just coaches, sliding the takes into the oven and setting the temperature at 600 degrees. There's plenty of that. Don't get me wrong. They didn't hold back. But it was details, detailed accounts of what Caleb Williams is like in practice and during the course of a game. If they just coach him, and if he doesn't like it, he would just walk the other direction. He'd just storm away. And in meetings, there were times he's just on the completely wrong page of what they're looking at and not being engaged. And maybe a coach asks him a question, and Caleb just kind of stares at him and as if to say, why are you asking me that? Well, you're the starting quarterback. You need to know this pass protection scheme. So there really wasn't an openness to learning, an openness to being coached. You mentioned the dyslexia. Yes, that's an element of this as well, where it is something that personnel people, coaches saw evidence of, and it was covered up. I mean, there's players who have it, and you just have to map out a plan. There really wasn't a plan mapped out. I think that's where coaches were irritated. They said we would have coached them completely differently. But to a man, they also say if you were to power rank the problems with the quarterback last year, the learning disability would be very low. The fact that he just wasn't really coachable and wasn't much of a leader was what would be at the top of that all. And players and coaches both wanted to bench Caleb Williams at one point and start Tyson Bagent after that New England game when they lost 19-3. And that's when Ryan Poles swooped in and basically said, hell no, over my dead body. This is the guy I drafted number 1 overall. And I think that as the Caleb Williams stuff got the headlines, and I get why. Like he's a polarizing lightning rod of a figure, but these three parts are more about Ryan Poles, the GM, than anybody, and how he does business. Because I've never heard other GMs talk about one of their own like they talk about Ryan Poles, and I've never heard scouts talk about their boss, and mostly former boss, like they talk about Ryan Poles. It's astounding. It blows my mind that he got a contract extension when he's lost as many games as he's lost. When he leads like he leads, he does not really open up the floor for genuine conversation, genuine debate. He's obsessed with the media, and what people are saying about him, what they're saying about the team. At one point, the December before the draft, he said, if I don't take Caleb Williams, the media is going to kill me. At which point, a scout told me, well, if you're talking like that, you might as well just let Mel Kiper make the picks. Like he cares deeply about crafting a narrative for public consumption, right down to their own team show. They've got this show that they put out on YouTube, and like these scouts are laughing, like saying, yeah, like we'll film stuff for the show that doesn't mirror reality. Like we'd have draft meetings for the show, and then our real draft meetings. It's all about projecting to a mass audience what life's really like there, and making it seem hunky-dory when it absolutely is not. And obviously the worst example of it all is when you've got the most treasured asset in sports, the number one overall pick, and you don't really consider Jaden Daniels at all. And you literally laugh Drake May off the screen and mock him and ridicule him. It was bad there. And they're just really hoping that Ben Johnson at this point is their knight in shining armor.
I mean, you got like I said, my buddy here just sulking, just shaking his head. No. But like you could not be more accurate when hit the nail on the head, because the culture over there is just rotting by the time Matty Eberflus had his bag sent packing after Thanksgiving. That's not to mention just that awful clock management between both him and Caleb Williams on Detroit that day. But still, illuminating, and for those who have not initiated themselves on GoLongTV.com, again, outstanding platform, outstanding content. Just make sure you give your credit where it's due here, Ty. But again, you owe it to yourself to read to, because you'll never get any other content like this. And some of this inside access for all the resources Ty has at his disposal to get all this information that's out there. Not something that you'll see on your average everyday beat reporter. So check it out. It is really worth your time.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot. And, for your Bears buddy there, I think another important note, and maybe this is where he can take a little hope for 2025. These coaches that I talked to, a lot of them, and they all make a lot of really great points, but even they admit where they were at fault. Out of the chute, they really did coddle Caleb Williams, and they just took a hacksaw to their own playbook and changed their snap count to ready, set, go. And they just did whatever he wanted them to do instead of just like sticking to their offense. And I think that was their mistake, because by the time they wanted to coach him hard and hold him accountable, when Thomas Brown is the interim coach with 4 or 5 games left, it's too late at that point. So what does Ben Johnson do day one? It's made clear to Caleb Williams, like, this is our offense. It works. Here's what you have to do to get there. You're going to have to put in the work. And in so many words, get with the program or get out. And I think that Caleb Williams, at least from afar, it seems like he's responded probably a little bit better than maybe those former coaches expected. And I also know this, since I wrote that series, I did hear from some people close to Ben Johnson who told me like he was aware of a lot of this stuff around Caleb Williams before taking the job. I think he knew going in how tall the task was. So it's not like it's shocking when he's learning what it's like to work with him. So he knew all this, and he still took the job. Now, $13 million a year, maybe not reason number one, but he also was the number one coaching candidate 2 years running. He can pick out anywhere he wants to go, and he chose the Bears. So there's some hope there. It's a long season. Hey, the Dallas game was great. The last drive against the Raiders was really sharp. Let's see what happens against the Commanders Monday night.
Absolutely. And Ty, I want to stay in the NFC North for a second. So you and Bob McGinn, you went into great detail on your podcast and earlier this week talking about how much ass kicking goes on for the Detroit Lions, our fathers, on both sides of the ball. Huge still for Dan Campbell's crew as they take on the struggling Kansas City team in Arrowhead for Sunday Night Football. as you continue to make your way down I-90, probably in those rural parts of Ohio and other places, tell us a few things that you walked away with after your time in Allen Park the last couple of days.
Yeah, I always love getting out there to Allen Park and just talking to people there around the line, because the Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell, it's everything that football should be. Like he's old school and he wants to win the physical game at the line of scrimmage, which I love, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners love. And like it's what football was meant to be. Look, it's a violent game played by violent people. It's either for you or it's not. And I think that he kind of established that early and whittled out maybe people who can't handle that reality. But he's also like really smart. He's not some Neanderthal from 1962 trying to win, with the power sweep. Like he's going for it on fourth down because he knows if he goes for it on all these fourth downs, that's going to implant true belief into his players. They're going to go out there confident that their coach believes in them, and they're going to make plays more often than they don't. So I think he gets like the mental side of the game. And, I was talking to a lot of players this week about this epidemic of players just dropping the ball before they cross the goal line. Like it's such a mental lapse, and how that happens is beyond me. But I think it's interesting. Like you can stress every rule and every coaching tip, and constantly talk to your players about everything they have to handle mentally into a game. But you still need those players to play fast and free and off instincts. And I think a lot of teams and a lot of coaches struggle with that balance. It's like some coaches just overload their players with knowing this and knowing that, and maybe you zap some of the instincts. Maybe you create a tight team. I've written about that with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, much of Sean McDermott's early years with the Bills against the Chiefs in the playoffs, they were a tight team, and it showed in 13 seconds, or even the Hail Murray, like these different moments. It's how you kind of operate as a coach is going to be reflected in your players one way or another. I think Sean's gotten a lot better in that regard. I think he's loosened up, he's chilled out, and you're seeing a looser team out there on Sundays. But Dan Campbell, more than anybody, just gets it. And so I wanted to find out, okay, how has he done it? And it was really interesting. Taylor Decker made some really great points, and like during the course of the week, they are just prepared for literally anything that can happen on a football field. And, before a Green Bay game last year, Dan Campbell told his players, this is when they were decimated by injuries. He said, look, we're going to go for it on every single fourth down. And he wasn't BSing. That's exactly what they did. And they won the game. I think there's just so many layers to Dan Campbell that make him the best coach in football. So, had a lot of fun out there. And, I'll have a player profile as well on Al-Qadim Muhammad. He's really emerged as a pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson. He's a maniac. And we'll see what happens. I mean, the Chiefs, I think if anybody's writing the Chiefs obituary, they're going to be sorry. They're going to get Rashee Rice back. Xavier Worthy's in there now. It's a long season. They play possum better than anybody. Kind of like the old San Antonio Spurs with Duncan and Ginobili and Parker, where they just screw around for a couple months before kicking it into gear. I think that's what the Chiefs are doing here.
I mean, you never want to write them off. I mean, as much as everybody's taking joy, or most Bills fans are taking joy in the fact that the Chiefs are just floundering at the moment, I don't see them having an easy time against Detroit, even at Arrowhead this week. So I'll be surprised if the Lions do not get further than where they got last year. I think losing to Washington was a big shock to their system, especially being the number one seed in the NFC during last year's playoffs. So I like what I see out of Detroit. I mean, by proxy for our dad, I mean, of course, they'll always have a soft spot in our hearts as well. So we can appreciate some Lions football, as well as some Dan Campbell and Amon-Ra St. Brown tearing things up too. But just kind of getting a little bit more around the league as well. Still, a macro level, there's been a few surprises around the league. Mostly, obviously, talking about those aforementioned Chiefs. The Baltimore Ravens, there are so many pundits and experts Super Bowl picks. Unfortunately, they've been plagued by injuries at this time. Instead of being the Thursday night football special, the AFC South with the Jaguars and the Colts. We have a Colts fan in attendance too, so we can give a little bit of shout out to them and Mr. Indiana Jones. But still, they're no longer the Thursday night football special. With those winning records, both those teams being 4-1. Looking over at the NFC, got lots of teams showing out like the Seattle Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield and his moxie. Like we said, those aforementioned Detroit Lions. So for you, Ty, which teams have been maybe the biggest surprises for you at this point, either from a successful or even almost non-successful point of view? And furthermore, can teams that you're thinking of either sustain that level of success that they've started off the season with, or can they right the ship when it matters down the stretch?
You mentioned Tampa Bay, and that's a team that, man, I can't take my eyes off them. They are fun as hell in the fourth quarter. And Baker Mayfield is the MVP as far as I'm concerned right now. I know it's early, but it seems like he is in the pole position right now with what he's doing in the fourth quarter with these comebacks. You know, he's always had that moxie, and he made a great point this week when he's like, yeah, early in my career, I was immature, and now everybody's loving it as he's a dog. It's funny how winning can kind of clean everything up and right the ship, but that's always been who he is. Like back in Oklahoma, he's planting the flag at midfield. You know, he's got the swagger. He's talking trash. I mean, that video of him in Seattle, how cool was that when he's in the tunnel and fans are trying to talk trash to him and he's talking trash right back. And then he goes out there, has the game of his life, and makes a point to go to that fan after the game to continue to talk trash. Like that's amazing. I love it. You know, these are human beings playing, like we said, a violent game. They're not robots out there. And I think that, you know, Quincy Avery's a private quarterbacks coach. He's worked with a lot of these guys. He made this point to me once, and I'll never forget it. He said confidence is a muscle. And he brought up Baker Mayfield. And he said he didn't even like Baker Mayfield. He doesn't like studying him. And at that point, he didn't. But he said, watch his game. When he gets rolling and he's confident and he's talking smack, like he just feeds off of it himself. And then teammates feed off of him. And it's just magnetic. And you can see it right now with Tampa Bay. They have something special building. I mean, Emeka Egbuka is the best rookie in football. You've got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rashad White, Bucky Irvin, weapons all over the place. You know, defensively, I guess you have to get a stop at some point. That's a struggle, but I love Tampa Bay right now. That's actually going to be my next trip, I think, getting down there to get a sense of Baker Mayfield's season. You know, and on the flip side, I think you brought up the point on Baltimore. Who in the heck thought that the Baltimore Ravens would be this historically bad on defense? And injuries, I get it, are real. I mean, Matabuke at D tackle is probably the best at what he does. They've got injuries all over the place. But weren't we told, like, for months and months and months, this is the best roster in football? And when you say it's the best roster in football, doesn't that also mean, like, you know, if a player goes down, if 2 or 3 players go down, you can still find a way to not give up 35 points a game? Like, they can't stop anything out there. And it's a problem. I mean, they're losing ground fast. I know they have the Rams, and then they have a bye week. This really strikes me as like a go-for-broke game for the Ravens. You know, no Lamar Jackson again, I guess. Like, they're going to rest him through the bye. Like, they're going to be going for fourth downs. They're going to be doing fake punts. I mean, they're going to be treating this game like a Super Bowl because you kind of have to. I mean, you're losing so much ground so fast that even in the AFC North where Joe Burrow is out and the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns, like, the Steelers are figuring out a way to win with old man Aaron Rodgers. Such a disappointing season for Baltimore.
Very good take, Ty. And just so we want to thank everybody. Just over 700 people tuned in live right now. So thank you for everybody who's here at RichBrau. It's been an interesting year, Ty. I want to get your take on really 2 things here. One, it just seems like I think a lot of people, including myself, felt that maybe the Bills, the Eagles, and obviously maybe our stance is changing on the Eagles a little bit. There's not really one dominant team. I'm in agreement with you. I think the Chiefs are definitely coming. They're going to heal up. They got guys come back from suspension, similar to the Bills. But the trade deadline is November 4th. A few teams have already been on the horn, making some lesser moves, kind of testing the waters. So what teams out there can benefit most from the trade deadline for some extra juice? And much of Bill's Mafia is already clamoring for, help either in the DB room or maybe a receiver that can get some separation. But what teams do you see and what players realistically could be moved for the Bills or maybe somebody else to kind of give them that boost to make them a true contender this year?
Whew. Boy, I think we're getting to that point where these GMs and head coaches kind of have to decide, like, are we going for it or not? And even when you sell your guys off, it's such a long season, things can turn around. I was talking to Brandon Bean a couple summers ago about that Rasul Douglas trade, and he kind of chuckled. He's like, yeah, I think Green Bay was kind of selling off their guys at that point. They were 3-6, I believe, and they traded Rasul Douglas for a mid-round pick. Like they weren't expecting Jordan Love to just turn it on and to make the playoffs and to beat Dallas and come within a play of beating San Francisco championship game. So, things can change in a hurry. So I do hesitate a little bit to say, okay, like this team is quitting on the season and everybody's for sale. But there are going to be those teams. There are going to be those GMs. Cleveland is interesting because they kind of operated that way on draft day. They had the number 2 pick. They could have taken Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, and they said, no, thanks. We'll move down. We'll take Mason Graham at D-tackle, and we'll take your future first-round pick, Jacksonville. So I got to think that, Cleveland, they've got a young core. All this Shedeur Sanders nonsense is kind of distracting from the fact that, like, they did have a really good draft. Carson Schlesinger at linebacker has been amazing. Mason Graham's been solid. Even Harold Fannin at tight end. I think they are looking to the future, and that maybe there is a veteran to be had. Is it David Njoku? Somebody like that? Is it? Jerry Jeudy really hasn't done anything. So I don't know. I don't know who you want on offense. They're just going to give Junkins the ball 30 times a game, I guess. But if you want anybody in Cleveland, I got to think some players could have some veterans. Cincinnati's going to be interesting. They made the Flacco trade. They're trying to stay competitive into late November, early December when could come back from that turf toe. But if they lose a couple more games, this Trey Hendrickson saga, could it kind of reemerge? Could there be a suitor for him? The Raiders are a disaster. The Geno Smith signing has blown up in their face. I got to think the Raiders could be moving some players there. I don't know, Jacoby Myers, maybe. It's Max Crosby. They gave him that big contract, but you feel bad for Max Crosby when you watch those games. Like, he is just a one-man wrecking crew, and it doesn't even matter. So I don't know. I guess I'm hemming and hawing because I'm not really sure who that team is quite yet, because I think it's got to take it into, 1-5, 1-6, and really no hope on the horizon. Look, it looked like no hope was on the horizon for the New York Giants. And then they go out there and they stun Philadelphia with Cam Scatabo and Jackson Dart, and there's hope in the air. So I really don't know, man. I got to think the Bills they'll be aggressive. They know they've got a Super Bowl window, and if there's somebody to be had, they're going to do everything in their power to find it. It might not work out. It might be Kelvin Benjamin, Amari Cooper. They've tried and failed in that department, but I don't think that's going to deter Brandon Bean from making another move.
I was going to say, at some point you have to go the Rams F them picks, especially with the window that the Bills have. It would be a price to pay for them for sure. But if they want to get to the promised land and even at least just get to the Super Bowl, that might be the ticket with what we have here. But for the folks on the video side, you notice we had a friend join us, and Ty, obviously we can't see it, but we have Mr. Coach himself, Mookie Hawkins. So everybody give a little round of applause for Mookie. Coach, tell us how things are going as you're on your way down to Atlanta here with Sean.
First of all, what's up, Richmond? Richmond, what's up?
I think I hear you, Mookie. Are you there?
All right, I know how it goes there in the NBA, but I'm happy to be here at the house. And what's your question again?
So, how's things been going for you, and how's things going down to Atlanta for the Falcons game this coming Monday?
Well, I'm a scenery guy, so the drive was pretty good, That's a great season, fall. You get to you see the weather changing. great scenery in the fall time, taking the drive up here for like 8 hours.
It's nice we don't have to drive.
Yeah, like we not drive either. Shout out to my guy SB, for the courtesy foot, I would guess, say, but I mean, all in all, the Bills got to get back on track. What we saw the other night was like, okay, I know it's the first loss of the season, but still, I mean, what it did was just open up things that was because of the Bills were winning. You know what I mean? It was okay because the Bills were winning. Now that they took that L on the fact that they did, now it rears its ugly head on certain situations, how you use James Cook. And then, I didn't go in the locker room after the game, right? Because you're going to lose the locker room. Nobody really wants to talk. They're going to give you a cookie cutter answer. It's going to be kind of dry, right? So I went in New England, chopped up with stuff like that, stuff like that. And my thing was this, though. At the end of the day, they want to talk about the turnovers and all that. You can't have that. You can't do that. The game was 2020, right? It all boiled down to the business. Despite all the turnovers, all the penalties, whatever, when it was 2020, it still couldn't get done. And that's been something that's been plaguing this Bills team, not only this year, but even last year and the year before that. All right, and trying to remember, you're a head coach, you're a defensive guy. So at the end of the day, you still can't get that necessary stop when the team needed, and Josh Allen has a front row seat to the Jumbotron, watching the next team score the game winning, whatever it is. I mean, they even did some things that they normally don't do. Let's see, the coverage wasn't tight enough. And something you're seeing is kind of predictable and clutch. I mean, damn, you know about this, right? Like, we were kind of like a victim of our own success, right? We're so used to Stephon getting those 10, 12 catches a game for us, where other teams said, hey, let's double him, let's take him away. And that's when everybody eats came along, because Stephon did kind of allow everybody to do that because he was the number one receiver. That kind of happened when they made the trade for Amari Cooper. You see, a little difference in how teams played on the back end, but about let's do what everybody else was doing. When we had Stephon Diggs, just one time. Let's try to do that, right? You think they would, right? They never do, right? And so those are some of the things that have been plaguing this Bills team for years. And it's rearing its ugly head, and it's time to, either switch the style up a little bit, or do some things that you normally don't do, or it's going to be some hot chatter, that I'm sitting on right now. That could be a little frightening if this continue. I mean, you're basically dead last. And they still giving up 160 yards on the ground. They got no offense. That backs it out. And you just can't have that. You can't score 40 points and give up 40 points. Right? You got to get some sacks. Defense wins championships, right? And I'm so tired of that Josh Allen having a front row seat. Or, all that they finally got in the rhythm. You ran out of time. You can't turn it on, Joe Brady. Like, this is week one in Baltimore. And think, okay, we're going to hit the switch now. We're going to hit our stride. We're going to win the game. You ran out of time this time because the defense couldn't get them off the field. You out, New England go out there and you field goal, win the game. You use all 3 years to house. So, I want to see some urgency going into this week because Atlanta has maybe a more high than New England has. They have running back, they have wide receivers, right? So they're gonna have their hands full, on the defensive side, trying to stop Bijan Robinson and company in the hospital environment on Monday night. Don't do the same thing that Philadelphia did last night. You don't want to be that way, right? So I'm quite sure that I saw that and say, we're not going to be started that movie going into this week, and hopefully, you'll see more team that's playing with more urgency at a championship.
Thanks for that, Mookie. Ty, any different thoughts on that before we turn it over to some audience questions?
No, I think Mookie made some great points. It's on this defense to get a stop. Get a stop when you need a stop. It's been a problem in the playoffs. It's been a problem against these elite teams. Like you have to find a way to dial up the blitz at the perfect moment, or just step up when you need it. Drake May looked like a top 5 quarterback at the end of that game. So I totally agree with him there, and I totally agree on Atlanta. This is an Atlanta team. I loved what they did in the offseason. I love what they did last offseason. The Michael Penix pick. Like, if you believe in a guy, if you think he could be your franchise quarterback, who gives a damn what anybody else thinks? I know Ryan Poles, the Bears GM, he had a good chuckle. He literally laughed about it at his press conference. But the Falcons saw something special in Penix, and they hedged their bet. They did pay Kirk Cousins all that money. Well, Kirk Cousins broke down sooner than they expected. Penix has a big arm. Drake London's a legit alpha number 1 receiver. Bijan Robinson may be the best running back in football, and you've got a top 3 offensive line. So, they're at home. This is not going to be an easy cakewalk for the Bills' beleaguered defense here. I think that it's going to come down to the finish. I think it's a high-scoring game.
So we can't wait to see it. So, Ty, I remember mentioning to you earlier. So you were down to have some audience questions. We had a couple that we're interested in asking. Yeah, are you down for some of that?
You got it. Yeah, we got the traffic's picking up here, but I think we'll be good for a little bit.
All right. So if anybody wants to come over and ask Ty a question, we'd love to hear from you. So I know, like I said, Ty covers the league at large. We'd love to hear from you. If you had any thoughts about your team, if you had any other questions about the Bills at this point, we'd love to hear from you. All right. Up first, we have Shannon. Shout out Sports down here in Richmond.
Hey, Ty, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Hey, so as Colts fan, we've gone through the quarterback carousel for a while. I'm feeling good about Indiana Jones, but I also feel like the rug's to be out from under us this season. How do you see this going?
I think I caught it. You're asking about the Colts and Daniel Jones, right?
Yeah.
Man, you know what? When you're wrong, you're wrong. I thought that he was certifiably washed, finished, done, a bust. I was like done believing in Daniel Jones throughout that Giants career. More times than I'd like to recall, I just convinced myself that he was going to work out. Right? Like, he made the playoffs without many talented receivers around him year 1 of Daboll, and then they get him some talent, and he gets hurt. It's just been a series of unfortunate incidents for him, whether it's an injury to himself, an injury to the offensive line. You know what? I just feel like in New York, his personality never meshed with Brian Daboll. And I've had coaches on that staff tell me, like, Brian Daboll wants a Josh Allen type. Playing loose, playing free, fiery. If Daboll's going to scream in Josh Allen's ear hole, Allen could take it. He could use it for good. Daniel Jones isn't like that. Daniel Jones is very serious, right? Like, very stern, very tight, very robotic. I sat down with him for a one-on-one last year, and I could just sense it in him. Like, he's very wound tightly. He was mad that the Giants were even talking to quarterbacks in that draft. I mean, we all saw the Hard Knocks where they're flirting with Jaden Daniels and these guys. I mean, Daniel Jones told me that ticked him off. I think a Josh Allen in that situation is basically going to say, F you, I'm going to prove you wrong, and he's going to go have a career year. Daniel Jones just isn't like that. Now, on the flip side, I've heard similar things about Shane Steichen. Like, he's a very serious coach, very stoic. And, even the way he runs his offense, it's very like 1 to 2 to 3, and Daboll's is a little freer. So maybe it's just all about fit. Like, maybe Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen are a perfect marriage, and maybe Brian Daboll and Jackson Dart are a perfect marriage. And at this point, you've got to believe in the Colts. My God, they should be undefeated if A.D. Mitchell doesn't just drop the ball. So, yeah, I think that they're going to be in the playoffs, and they actually have a good amount of talent. I mean, I've been really critical of Chris Ballard and the fact that he's still the GM, but you got to hand it to him. Like they've got some solid players on both sides of the ball, and now they've got a quarterback who can complete some passes. I mean, Anthony Richardson was like 47.7% last year. And also Anthony Richardson, that he, back to college, there were some off-field concerns that weren't discussed nearly enough in the media and maybe even in the Colts headquarters. And I think a lot of that stuff kind of reared its head behind the scenes as a pro. So they've got a true pro now in Daniel Jones. And I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to be in the playoffs. They're a threat because they've got a good plan and they're just going out there and executing it.
So you got some good affirmation over there from Shannon. So thanks for taking that one on the Colts there. But again, one more quick shout out to the Sports Bro and his podcast. And we're down here in Richmond. They've had me on a couple of times and taught me many things about being able to have a successful podcast. So again, shout out to El Capitan, Mr. Justin Great, and Shannon again, of course, and all the other guys on the Sports Bro. But got another one for you here, Ty. Again, my friend, the aforementioned Bears fan. He has something he wanted to ask you as well.
All right, so I actually have two questions. So the first one is about Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and whether or not the kind of incapable coaching of Eberflus last year was a reason for some of the issues with Caleb Williams, and if is the solution, or is it, in your opinion, is Caleb kind of just always going to be who he is? So to answer that question, I have next one that's totally unrelated.
I'm sorry, my phone was breaking up there a little bit.
So he was asking about Caleb Williams and the connection last year with Eberflus, and how was it ineptitude in coaching from Eberflus, or was it more Caleb Williams not receiving the message? So going back to the article, describe how that went and compare it now to the Ben Johnson marriage currently going on at Hallis Hall.
Sure. Eberflus is a defensive guy. He's kind of a dork from what I've heard. His first speech was kind of a disaster, and he couldn't really relate to the modern day athlete that well. We'd always have these nicknames for guys and kind of corny cliche things. But, I think he was a decent man. I don't think he was like an inspirational figure, and I don't think he was a drill sergeant. I think he was just kind of there, and he's manning the defense, and he kind of left the offense to Shane Waldron, and then Waldron gets fired, right? When the players and the coaches wanted Tyson Bagent out there, and Ryan Pohl said no, the head on the stick was Waldron, so he gets fired, and then Thomas Brown's the OC. Thomas Brown eventually is the interim coach. And so, it's interesting. Waldron and Thomas Brown are so different. Waldron was very passive. I think he's very gentile. He didn't want chaos. He didn't want confrontation. So when Caleb Williams was just not really listening, or just walking away from him, or throwing a tantrum or whatever, Shane wouldn't really make a big deal of it. He kind of let the problem fester, which is probably the worst thing you could possibly do, because this stuff never really got addressed. And he changed his offense for Caleb and kind of, twisted and contorted everything to cater the quarterback. And, it didn't work out. He gets fired, and Thomas Brown comes in, and he is old school. Like, he is going to get in his face. He is going to hold him accountable. And I don't think Caleb really responded to it that well. So, yeah, it did not go well for a million reasons last year. And I think that Caleb and Ben probably have clashed. And I think that Ben Johnson is holding them to a high standard. But it sounds like it's been a good working relationship. Like, if we're to believe everything that we're told, it was hard at first. And Caleb was even wondering, like, why is this guy on me so much? But to Ben Johnson's credit, he's got a standard for how this offense has to be run, and he's going to hold the quarterback to it like everybody else. And I think that you've seen some good. Look, the Cowboys defense is a joke, but they went out there and lit it up. The Raiders game was going really poorly, but he turned it on when he had to with that drive late. And now we're going to see, like, they've got some winnable games coming up. and then the schedule gets really, really tough. So they've got to get some wins here, and they might. And then, hey, if you're in the hunt, I guess anything can happen. Look, Caleb Williams is talented. His arm is unbelievable. He can improvise. He can do all the fun stuff that we like out of the position. What we don't know, and what Ben Johnson didn't know, is can he operate within the structure of an offense? Like, can he stay in the pocket, go through his reads, and spit the ball out with timing? Because he's going to tell him where to put the ball, and that receiver's going to be open, and it's just on the quarterback to pull the trigger and deliver an accurate pass. And I think in that department, it's still been a little uneven. I mean, you're seeing some wild throws at times. And hey, like we keep coming back to, the season's a marathon, and it'll be an interesting conversation to have come January.
Awesome. Thanks for that one. And Brian had one more for you, unrelated to the Bears.
Yes, my question is about the pairing of a general manager and the head coach, and how we talk about the dysfunction with the Bills between McDermott and Fee, and between Foles and whatever head coach for the Bears. Do you think there's a reason that they should be always linked together in a good scenario, or if there's a reason that you should go treat, fire one to keep one alive?
All right, Chris, I need your help on the end there. It got cut up a little bit. So this was about Poles and Ben Johnson, like their relationship?
Not necessarily their relationship, but more so keeping GMs and coaches as a pair. So Brian was asking, you have Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott combined as a pair, and now you have Brian Poles and insert your head coach's name here. Or you look at other organizations, do you feel the need to keep them as a package deal at all times, or do you fire one and try and enhance it as best as you can? Let's say it's like a Howie Roseman situation in Philadelphia, and they just go through different coaches all the time.
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is, because, I mean, that's what's plagued the Bears all these years, right? Like, their order of operations is just in perpetuity, it's just botched. It's out of whack. Like, they don't know who to hire, when to hire them, when to draft a quarterback. It's, new GMs and new coaches are always inheriting somebody else's quarterback. I think they're trying to force the issue right now. Like, with that extension to Poles, like, they're trying to once and for all, like, get the GM and the coach linked up. And I think that Ben Johnson has to have the power. I mean, there's no way Poles is making $13 million a year or remotely close to that. Money talks. So Ben, and you look at what Ben Johnson did in the offseason, like, that draft had his fingerprints all over it. I think the offensive line moves had his fingerprints all over it. So yeah, Ryan Poles is there. I don't know, like, maybe he's just like overseeing the personnel department, and I don't know what the perfect situation is. Like, the Bills, Sean McDermott was really in charge, and he brought Brandon Beane in as his GM. But I think right now, Brandon Beane has the final say on draft picks. I think that Beane has really gained authority over the years, and yeah, it's going well. They've won a lot of games, but they're kind of at that point where, hey, we gotta win a Super Bowl, or at least get to one here. I think every team's different. Like Kansas City, Andy Reid, he's got the power. Brett Veach is overseeing personnel, and they're really linked up. They've got a good thing cooking. Howie Roseman, like you said, like, he's really in control with the Eagles and can kind of do whatever he wants. If there was a hard and true science, everybody would do it. I think it's up to the owner really to understand what's best. And we always have the debate, like, how involved should an owner be? And you cannot go full Jerry Jones. You can't have an owner that's anointing himself the GM and trading Micah Parsons and doing all these ridiculous things. But you can't be so distant like George McCaskey. I mean, he's not involved at all. Like, to the point where he's not telling Ryan Poles, hey, let's look at some other quarterbacks here, right? Like, let's at least prove to me I'm crazy for thinking we should maybe think about somebody else. So I think owners do have to be involved to an extent. It's somewhere in the middle, and I think that's probably the debate to be had, is like, how much involvement is just enough for an owner. And that's where you see it all over the spectrum. Some teams, the owner's way too involved. Some teams, the owners way too hands off. I think in Buffalo, they've got a really good thing working. I think that Terry Pagula is involved, just the right amount with these Bills. He lets the GM be the GM. He lets the coach be the coach, and he chimes in when he has to.
Just don't tell that to the Buffalo Sabres fans in Western New York. Ty.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's another conversation. Right.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, Tyler, we wanted to thank you so much for just tuning in. I thought Mookie's got one for you real quick before we start to wrap things up.
Ty, I know you're on the road and it's kind of difficult for you to drive, especially when I'm talking, but dudes, offensively, they is scoring 3 points, right? But what's your take on this offense not having any type of rhythm in the first 4 weeks?
Man, Mookie, God, there's so many reasons. It's hard to just blame one thing, and they have won 4 games, so they're doing something right. But you know what I keep coming back to, and I'm sure you are too? Keon Coleman. It's time, Keon Coleman, to show up on time, number one, so you don't get benched. And if Josh Allen's going to throw you a one-on-one ball and you've got a little slot corner on you, you've got to win that. You've got to win that ball. That's why you're not a burner. You're not going to get separation. They knew that going in, but they thought that you were this former basketball player who's going to out-muscle guys. And he's done that at times. He did it in the New England game, but there's other times where it's dude, you should not get bullied. You should be the one bullying everybody else. And to me, if I were to power rank things that are disappointing offensively, that'd probably be near the top because, the context is important here. You had Ladd McConkey right there. You had Xavier Worthy right there. You had Ricky Pearsall right there at the original pick. Hell, you could have traded up and gotten Brian Thomas Jr. That could have been a thing. So we're going to judge that Keon Coleman pick in relation to all of these other receivers. And there's been some good. I come back to that Seattle game last year against Reek Woolen, who is a big corner, 6'4", and Keon Coleman was pushing him around and doing some good things. So it's in him, but it's just got to be more consistent. So, yeah, great things out of Dalton Kincaid, your first-round pick 1 year, and your top pick the next year, second round, but really a first-rounder when you lump it all together with the trade and everything. He's got to start showing out.
But I think the play calling has to be consistent as well. I mean, when you look at it, he's clearly not the wide receiver number one. All those receivers that you just mentioned is wide receiver number one. You got Don Kincaid, you got Khalil Shakur, who's getting the most, probably the prime time of the targets. Keon Coleman gets his when he gets it. And then, when he is got a little guy on him, Josh Allen needs to throw the ball a little bit more higher in his catch radius instead of somewhere where a 5'8" guy can get his hand on it, too.
I don't know. I think Keon Coleman should just rip it away from that 5'8" guy, though, Mook. Just take the ball from him.
Yeah, but we never see slot fade. I mean, I want to.
Yeah.
We got explosive players, but we don't have explosive plays. You should be every time Bill step over that 50-yard line, you should take a shot in the field with Keon Coleman 1-on-1. Then we can see the talent. We're not using the talent the way we should be using the talent. It's at times in meaningful moments of the football game, James Cook is not even on the field. Still, there was one time in the game last week where they were inside the 20, and Ray Davis said, "No, this Ray Davis was 3 times." But I'm trying to put my dogs out there to get back in this ball game, and he wasn't even out here. It takes me all the way back to 4th and 5 in the AFC Championship game. But again,
oh yeah. Oh, I'm with you 100% on all that, man. James Cook is electric. He is your explosive playmaker. He's got to be on the field.
Right. Gotta be on the field. That's all my take on Brady. We get too concerned. We'll jump out on you, it'll be 14 but then next we'll get the ball back and we do something crazy. Like Coach McDermott said, you're doing jet sweeps with Dawson Knox. You're doing flea flickers for crying out loud. What did you do on flea flickers? Just 3rd and 3, we go on global screens like it's college instead of going up the field. Where's the vertical offense at? You got Josh Allen. You take the ball out of his hands by going close. You know what I mean? Like we should be a more vertical offense, and you wasted Josh 5 years in this offense right now, as far as I'm concerned. And the crazy part about it is he's still putting up great. Right, so it's just like this hot and cold thing. I think it's due to play calls and personnel in certain situations.
You know what? You make some really good points because it does get a little too bland. The only thing I'll say though is I think part of it is a little by design. I'm not saying it's right, but I think that the Bills are holding a lot back right now. And yeah, I think that they know they're going to be in the mix in December and January and hopefully February. And I think that they want Josh Allen to be upright by then. And they're kind of being, and again, I'm not saying it's right. I think they're being conservative to the extreme with some play calling and with some holding Josh Allen back. And maybe that, I mean, maybe I'm being Mr. Sunny Side Up here, but I do think that they know what they're doing here in terms of not showing too much, and they probably know it is a little bland right now on purpose.
No doubt. Appreciate you, my guy. Safe travels.
Hey, appreciate you, Mook. You have a safe trip down there to Atlanta.
I'm good, baby.
Now I got one more for you to get you out on this one. I know you talked about it earlier, the prediction. Has your Super Bowl prediction changed at all? And if so, who you got?
What did you say? Has my pick changed?
Yes. Has your Super Bowl prediction changed from your original one that you did with Bob McGinn at the end of the preseason?
Hell no. Buffalo, Washington. I'm sticking to it. Jaden Daniels is back. Josh Allen will get cooking. And yeah, it's going to be a Super Bowl rematch right there.
There you go. 1992 is calling, except no longer in the Metrodome. They'll be out in San Fran out of Levi's Stadium. We hope to see that.
Josh Allen's back, yeah.
So Josh Allen was just saying in a press conference the other day that the only stadium he hasn't been to yet after he goes to Atlanta this week will be Levi's Stadium. So, hey, how about that?
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Hey, there you go. There you have it.
Right? But anyway, so, Ty, big thanks to you. So everybody give a nice big round of applause for Tyler Dunne.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. It was a great time. And I wish I was there to enjoy it in person, but this was fun.
Oh, yeah. So, Ty, thanks so much for making this work on the road, no less, of course. Real quick, one last thing before you go. Tell us what you got cooking for Go Long and for us folks to be on the lookout for, just so we can get some good reading in.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, right at the site now, I've got a long form on the New England Patriots. And, the Bills fans there may enjoy it. Like the end of Belichick was very ugly. And I got some sources talking on what life was like at the end and kind of the rot and the decay and the ruins of a fallen empire. But then now Mike Vrabel and Drake May are trying to kind of build something with their own bare hands. So, yeah, I think the headline is like Patriot Reign. And that might be interesting to some folks. And then, yeah, from this Detroit trip, I'll have all sorts of line stuff. And, of course, we know where our bread is buttered. It's right in Western New York. We'll get some Bills content up there as always.
Yeah, if you're looking for something for the Patriots, man, reach out to Brandon Spike.
There you go, right there.
Yep, there you go with that one. So, again, Ty, so much. Thank you. We really appreciate it. You get yourself home safe, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. We'll do it again.
All right. Take care, Ty. So, one more time, Tyler Dunne, round of applause.
Thank you.
With everyone here at RichBrau, and all our nearly 1,000 viewers tuning in. Thank you so much. Shawnee B, you got a big trip ahead of you coming up as he's making his way down at the bar, just getting himself another beverage. But still, anyway, you guys got a big trip going down to Atlanta, Mookie. Tell us what you got cooking with Mr. TG, Mr. Tim Graham, coming up this Sunday.
Oh, man, we're going to be out and about in the A, and we're going to invade. We're going to be crashing some places down in Atlanta. Me, TG, SB, my guy Bill, and Phil. He's going to be joining us too. So, we're going to be all over the place, and just spread some Bills cheer and, some good top content for everybody to enjoy leading up to Monday night. All right. So, Atlanta is kind of like the second home to both Ronians. So it's going to be they're there now. Like Bills Mafia is there right now. dragging their tails off right now. I'm drinking a lot of beer, so I'm trying to catch up. You see, my glass is empty, so I gotta refill a little bit. But other than that, it's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be great atmosphere, and the Bills better get this shit. And I'll tell you that much.
So, Coach, I know you're exactly right with that sentiment there. So again, we're glad to have you along for the ride tonight too. So again, take a little round of applause for Mookie as well, folks. Anyway, yeah, so he's here, folks. He's here in the RBA. But still, that'll do it for us tonight, folks. Look for us to return next week after the Bills start their bye week. The Sabres continue their first few games of their regular season. Maybe they'll get off the schneid. Maybe get on the score sheet for once as well. But again, thanks everybody once more for tuning in for those here. And as always, let's go Buffalo.
Let's go Bills, baby.
Bills.